right, welcome everybody to What's in the Box episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and today we are going to be discussing the movie, the 1979 version of the Amityville Horror. So Eric, what were your first thoughts about this movie?
Well, if you cut out a couple seconds of nudity, and I don't even know if there was any swearing in this movie, I would think made for TV, you know, special of the week kind of a movie.
Yeah,
I don't know. So I think what we talked about earlier, last time we were together, we talked how much we liked the book, and it was our favorite book so far. Overall of the three that we've done, this is my least favorite movie of the three.
yeah,
So if we were ranking them, Hellraiser, of course, and then Exorcist, and then a distant third is going to be Amityville. And I don't even know if The Omen or Rosemary could finish behind it at this point.
yeah,
So, but it's not a terrible movie, and I don't want people to take, our first thoughts is this is a bad movie. It's not a terrible movie. It's well done. The director is actually like a nominated director, and that's the thing the '70s I think did right. They always got either up and coming, super talented directors or established directors to do these horror movies, and they got people to take the movies serious.
yeah,
And I think that's important. I think without that, we would have had this. I don't know. I don't know if there would have been a renaissance in horror movies that led us to some of the greats that we got in the '80s. If there wasn't all of this critically acclaimed, directors, writers, and all that stuff dealing with these movies, it's a well shot movie, but it has the vibe of like you would get in the '80s on the made for TV special events. Think of the
yeah,
two nights and stuff.
yeah.
So
I think it started strong. I was really like, with the beginning sequences, I was where they were going through the DeFeo murders. I'm like, oh man, this is pretty
yeah, I
good.
thought the exact same thing. They opened it up right. They explained everything we needed to know in like 25 seconds, 50, was it a minute? I don't know.
Maybe a
It
minute
was
or
like
two.
boom.
Yeah,
And we
yeah,
knew that the house had those murders and all this stuff and exactly how he did it. And they
yeah,
gave little clues through it. I thought this is so much more presented. It's so much better presentation than the book because the book
yeah,
we had to get into it a little bit. So yeah, I
yeah,
definitely agree. I loved how they started it.
yeah. The beginning was great. I was a little taken aback that they changed the season that
Yeah,
the movie took place in. In the book, in the real life account, it took place over Christmas, so in
right.
the winter. Between mid-December through the New Year. Um, So I was waiting for it because it looked like it was cold because they had like sweaters and jackets on. So I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna transition into the winter.
Yeah. So
Um,
maybe we're talking late summer, early fall though. By the time they
yeah,
finished it, it never got anywhere.
yeah. So, and I think in the book, the weather of that time of year really played into the atmosphere of what was going on.
Yeah.
So I think like what maybe it was too hard to film in the snow back in the 70s, you know?
Yeah, but they didn't have to film any exterior stuff really. They kept
Yeah,
forcing their hand to do exterior work. They didn't need to do any of that. And the
yeah,
other thing was you needed the winter environment because you had to have the freezing cold. Because they kept
yes,
in the book, they kept playing it off as, oh, it's winter. That's why
yeah,
this room's cold, not it's haunted.
yeah.
So, and then it made more sense to his constant need for the fire. I'm
Exactly.
always cold. It just stood out as weird when he's like, it's 70 something in the house in New
Hmm.
York, and he's like, I'm freezing. It feels like it's 35. And nobody else is experiencing this. Nobody
Yeah.
else. So I thought you're right, they mishandled that, the date,
Mm.
and they also mishandled the marriage.
Yes.
They acted like they just got married, but in the
Yeah.
book they tell you they've already owned a house. They've been
Yeah.
married for a while. The kids have been with this man long enough that they're comfortable calling him father.
Yeah.
That right there tells you everything you need to know. And then they act like they just got married. So then some of their interactions are really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning sequence, and I'm curious if you picked up on this. Um, so in the book, which again I'm going to point out is supposedly the real life recollection of
Right.
this family based on a true crime. So in the book, all of the Tefeo victims were on their stomachs.
Right. So somebody wasn't.
Yeah. So did you notice in the opening sequence, the father, and it kind of went a little fast, so I couldn't remember if I couldn't tell if it was a brother or a sister, were not on their backs or their stomach. And I remember in the book that was a really big point
Mhm.
of them, because it was part of the satanic or something that they were on their stomachs.
Oh, I was thinking it was because then when the family started sleeping on their stomachs, then they could say
Yeah.
it was tied in that way. But yeah,
Because
you're right.
all of the victims except for the mother were shot in the back.
Right. I'll be honest with you. I started watching the thing so late, and I
Yeah.
was more worried about the um, noise of the rifles bugging my wife than I was paying attention to how they were laying down. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. If you're right, yeah, they should have all been on their stomachs. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, that was if I'll go back and if I'm looking for it, I'm sure I'll catch it right away. But no, I
Yeah,
didn't.
because it was just quick
You know
flashes,
what?
you know.
And I may have noticed it and just not registered it because I do remember thinking um, that one of the kids was off somehow. You know, when he
Yeah.
wanted to kill one of the brothers, I thought, yeah, there is something off here. This isn't right.
Yeah, because I remember the father was kind of like on his back, and either brother or sister, it was quick and kind of dark, so I couldn't really tell if it was a boy or a girl, but they were on their side. So, and again, the police report, if you looked at it, it says they were all shot in the back except for the mother. Um, so if they were sleeping on their side or if they were sleeping on their back, how were they shot in the back?
Yeah, no, that is kind of weird. And I hate to interrupt this, but we are recording this during KillerCon,
Yeah.
and I just got a text from Candace Nola saying that she won.
Oh my
And
gosh, congratulations,
I know,
Candace.
Candace, that's awesome, and that's why I was looking down. I thought it might be something to do with family stuff I've been up here with, but no, it was her letting me know that she won. That is awesome.
Oh,
Um,
yay. Tell her I said congrats.
um, I will, and so now we can get back
Yeah.
into the story that we're dealing with right here. I will text that real quick, and then we'll go into the next bit. Yeah. So what was the? I thought so. We talked about the marriage. What was the dog changed? I didn't like that either.
The dog changed. They didn't have him in like a compound. It sounded like they had him, from what
Yeah.
I was imagining when I read the book, it was like this big chained in area with a dog house and whatnot, and they just had him chained up to the porch.
And rarely did they have him change in the porch. Usually it
Yeah.
was in the basement, which in the book, that
He
was
doesn't want to go in the
right.
basement.
And then in the
Yeah.
movie, he's always in the basement. So I
Yeah.
did think that was cool. I didn't think that was a cool thing. I didn't like the fact that they moved it to a black lab. That's not. I don't know. I just you picture the dog that they had, and almost as a wolf. This
Yeah.
giant super dog, and there's nothing wrong with black labs, but it's not the same
Yeah.
temperament or any of that stuff. So
Yeah. And another thing that kind of annoyed me, which it probably shouldn't, but it did. But they changed the names of the kids, which, maybe the parents said when the movie was being made, we really don't want our kids' names out there anymore. But this book sold 230,000 copies or something, so people already knew their kids' names.
But remember we had that discussion though during the episode. We didn't know if maybe they'd already changed the kids' names. And
Yeah,
we thought, wouldn't it be funny if they changed it again in
yeah.
the movie?
So
So that was it.
I actually did some more Googling, and actually Danny Lutz, so his name was not changed in the book. Danny Lutz actually has a special, I think it's on Netflix or something. It's called My Amityville Horror, or
Really?
is it Amityville
Huh.
Prime? And he like talks about his experience. And his sister and his brother didn't want to be in that movie. So I'm actually thinking of checking it out just to see what it's all about. Um, but yeah, it said that his sister Missy and his brother Christopher, which were the names in the book. So
Okay.
the
So
names
maybe
in
they
the book,
didn't.
yeah, the names in
Yeah.
the book are they're true, and in the movie they're Matt, Greg, and Amy.
Well, to be honest with you, they, yeah, I mean, at least I felt they basically ignored the children the entire time in the
Yeah,
movie, which is
yeah,
why I didn't send over any of the pictures when we have the faces to put when we discuss the characters. they decided not to focus on a lot of the stuff with the kids, and I think it totally changes the dynamic of the fear that the parents should be going through.
Yeah,
And
it definitely did. And I also noticed that Kathy did not have any kind of personality change that she did in the book. In the book, everybody had a personality change
right,
except for the daughter. The
right,
boys were like
yeah.
fighting all the
So
time.
yeah, we didn't get any
Yeah,
aggression from the two boys, and they totally and they changed the way that George was affected by the house too,
yeah,
because he instantly in the book is grumpy, lashes out, yells at the children, scares everyone, you know, um, but it slowly grows with him.
yeah,
And I also thought that yeah, you're totally right, Kathy. I thought that about an hour and a half into it, I was like, Kathy's not doing anything like she did in the book.
yeah,
And I wonder if that's the actress's choice. I wonder if she came into it thinking, I'm not going to do this, or, and, or if she wanted, if it was rewritten that way or what. Um,
yeah,
it said, I know I read a note saying that the main guy, the guy who played George, James Brolin, he, uh, he hung out with George and like tried to pick up stuff and listen to the accounts firsthand.
yeah,
So I'm wondering if yeah, I didn't see anything about her doing anything like that. So I don't know. And at this time, was she well established? I know her as Lois Lane, but that was in the 80s. So to me, she didn't do anything until then. But so, I mean, I don't know how deep into her IMDb page we get Amityville Horror. So I don't know if
yeah.
she's
I
like
don't know.
is she a big thing at this time? And because I did read a note saying that she did not want to make the movie.
Oh, really?
Or not either she didn't want to make it or she didn't like the idea of having to make this movie. Like
Hmm.
she wasn't sure that it was going to help her at all.
Yeah.
Um,
Huh, weird.
so maybe that's why she doesn't. But I thought she did a good job, so I'm not like
Yeah,
crapping on her. I thought within the script that they gave her and whatever they asked her to do, I thought she did a good job. But her direction, instead of becoming aggressive and crazy, was to be more reactive to everything,
right.
and it seemed like she was less concerned by everything,
Hmm.
you know. Because in the book, she's very concerned, always trying to convince him to get out of the house with the kids.
Right.
It was forever before she mentions let's leave.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, did how how did you feel they did the supernatural element stuff? It didn't feel like there was it didn't feel like there was anything that should make them want to leave in the movie until the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm. Yeah. There wasn't really much. They focused a lot on the phone issues
Right, but that could easily
because,
be taught.
yeah,
You could say something about that, but
yeah. We didn't really get to see a lot about the lion moving. Um,
although they did do that because
yeah.
they have a scene where she puts it in the kids' room, and then it isn't 15 minutes later, another day, is gone, advanced, and he trips over it downstairs, walking
Yeah.
by the stairs,
Yep.
and it tears his leg up and everything. So we do know that this thing's moving around, but we don't have any reason to believe that the family itself didn't move it because
Yeah.
they never add anything to it. And I don't know if that's a conscious decision by the director to make it seem more grounded in reality, because he doesn't take that direction with the priests. I mean,
No.
that the priest stuff is way over the top, but
Yeah.
the family stuff is very counterintuitive to the book.
Yeah.
Because what did we
Um,
say? I think we said the other time, if this book was happening to you, by the end of chapter one, you've moved out of the house, you've
hmm.
figured it out.
Yeah.
There was no reason to believe that anything was going wrong other than that the guy was kind of turning into a jerk.
Yeah. Um, it did get a little more iffy with him with always using the axe.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially where oh, I forget what his Jeff, is it?
The
Was his
coworker.
coworker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
really his
like,
underling, I guess, not really a coworker, but somebody who worked underneath him.
yeah,
But he seemed to have his ear. Um, yeah, I was wondering if they were going to talk about any of the economic hardships that the book really stresses,
yeah,
because they didn't get to that till maybe a good hour into it.
yeah. And then Jeff's girlfriend, Carolyn. that was kind of different, because the first time they showed up at the house, she's like, I am not going in there.
Right. I thought that was very,
Yeah. And
it
then
was
this,
odd.
yeah. And then towards the end, she's like, oh, I have to go in.
Yeah,
And
that
she
made no
was like,
sense.
she was almost giddy with wanting to get into this house and figure out what was going on. So I had a hard time with that.
Yeah, because she definitely, when they get there the first time, she refuses to the point where she gets back in the car and
And
closes
rolls
the
up the
door.
window.
Yeah, it says this place is bad. And then it's, and it's days later, but it's still within a month. The whole story takes place within a month. And so he's like, "Oh, you guys need to go out on a date and we'll just babysit your kids." And it's at night. I'm like, this lady's not going to go in the house. And then she's like, running to the basement. We need to go to the basement.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what has this lady been smoking? Because this is totally not. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It's the one thing that stood out more than anything. And they had a good 3 or 4 things that stand out as WTF moments I felt in the
Yeah.
movie. And
Yeah.
not
And
just comparing it to the book, but just like if this was happening, what do they think? This doesn't make any
right.
sense.
Right. And then what happened to them after the whole basement scene? Jeff and Carolyn, they kind of just like, all of a sudden we're not there, and Kathy and George were doing the
The
blessing of the
blessing. Yeah, I
house.
think what ends up happening is that the family's so freaked out by finding the red room that they basically tell them to leave, and they start trying to bless the house, which I still, that's the thing I argue, I argue is a terrible idea in the book, terrible idea here in the movie. Have two people just walking around trying to bless a house without any,
Yeah.
whatever. So, I mean, good for them, I guess. But when you go into your room and you find your cross upside down and it was shiny silver and now it's just black,
Yeah.
like horror, yeah, you probably just leave the house. Leave the
Yeah.
house. It's so simple. The
Yeah.
dog tells you. The dog tells you at the very
Yep.
beginning. It should have been a 5 minute short. The dog is uncomfortable in the house. There's something
Leave.
wrong. Get out of there.
Yeah.
Don't
So
know.
another thing is, there was way more religion for Kathy, and more so for Kathy and George in the movie. In the book, it's quite clear that they are not Catholic, they don't practice. However, Kathy was always wearing a crucifix in the movie. She had a
Yeah,
chain. Um, and you got more of a sense that um, Father Delaney in the movie, Father, I think Mancuso in the book, um, was more of a part of her life in a religious manner than just being a friend.
yeah, I got it more to as not maybe religion per se, but you're going to get a heavy dose of religion if you go to a father for advice and stuff. But I got that feeling that he was her guide in life. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And just like you said that, but see, that only makes sense if we know more about the previous relationship. And in the book, they kind of make it a more, a bigger point that, hey, this guy helped her get through that divorce and to George, and that's why George was so open to allowing the guy come in and bless the house,
Yeah.
because he was, trying to keep her happy. You don't get that
Yeah.
feel in the movie because we're told these two just got married. She has one throwaway line where she says, when she's on the phone talking to the other priest, she goes, he got me through a tough time.
Yeah.
And so then, yeah, so yeah, you're totally right. They really hammer the religious side of it more on her end, and he seemed to be totally cool with it.
Yeah.
And then,
And when he was in the bar with Jeff, and Jeff and him started fighting,
yeah,
Jeff had said, you changed religions for this dame with three
yeah,
kids.
yeah. And in the book, it's obvious he didn't change religions.
It's
He
the
just got
reverse.
right.
It's the reverse in the book, because she took up, what is it,
Yeah, they started.
transcendental meditation
Yeah,
because of George.
right. And I don't even know. Does that fall under like Hindu or something? I don't know.
I
It's
don't
got to
know.
be some sort of Eastern,
Yeah.
mind thing.
Um,
But
so yeah, in the movie they say that you gotta assume that he changed religion to Catholicism or Christianity,
yeah,
whatever.
right.
But in the book, in the supposed real account of what happened of these people's lives, it was the reverse. So
Yeah,
what, I'm curious why they would think they would need to emphasize the religion part of it when
I
that was
think
clearly not a part of their lives.
I think it's to tap into people's natural fears and
Yeah.
stuff. And I think it's also to piggyback on The Exorcist, Rosemary's
Mhm.
Baby, Omen.
Yeah.
You know, you can have, so now you can add Amityville to that list of, you know, oh, look at this primal fears, you know, and the way the church handles it. And maybe, well, this movie was not pro-church in any way. I didn't feel they basically every time they showed, they might as well have slapped clown paint on these priests and shoved him into a little, you know, car playing, you know, the music off the ice cream truck or something. Because these were the most ridiculous people I've ever. I thought they were bad in the book.
Yeah.
They were terrible in the movie. The way they treated the main priest, Delaney,
Yeah.
and the way they treated the whole situation. We don't even get the you need to get the psychic people or the paranormal people. They
Right.
just treated him like he was, you know, batshit crazy and said
Yeah.
go.
And that was another change too, because in the book, Mancuso was like, I am not going back to that house. And he would like put it out of his mind. And, but the lady in the movie was always like, I need to go to the house. I need to help these people. I need to go to the house.
And failing miserably every time, which I
Yeah.
understand. If you want to say that the spirit of the house was stopping it from happening, fine. But if that guy really was his buddy, the one that kept helping him out, kept trying to make it sound like he was his friend, he would have gone to the house. Just go to
Hmm.
the house. That's all you have to do is go to the house.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't go to the house to help, and not only that was like a hindrance. If anybody, like when she called and he's like, he's on vacation, you need to just, you know, stop calling and all that kind of stuff. And then they have the two priests that were in charge completely dismiss everything as if it was nonsense and that none of this could even vaguely be possible.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. That I almost want to go back and see if there is something in the history books about the church and secular views in the 70s or something, because it really feels like they've just the way they keep being shown to us, you know,
Yeah.
that they've decided, or maybe that's part of what they were trying to do, is trying to let people think, okay, look, we're not trapped in the Stone Age, you know, we're embracing new ideas and we're not doing this other stuff. But it really made them look like complete total, you know, a-holes for not
Yeah.
going out there
Yeah.
and helping that family. I felt bad for the family, especially her, because she did a really good job of going from excited to get this house to completely and totally out of her mind by the end of it, just trying to get out of the house. I
Yeah.
thought she did a good job.
Yeah. Let's share those pictures here. Let's take a look. So this is the movie poster, um, which is kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah, I like that one. I had a feeling this probably wasn't the very first movie poster. It might have
yeah.
been one of those, you know, secondary ones, but I thought it was the one of the better ones. I really like, you know, it's got that really good quote. It's got the flies. The house is really
Yeah.
scary. Shows some of the stars. You know, I really did. And from what I understand at the time, this was considered a independent film,
Oh, really?
and so they made a ton of money as an independent film. I want to say, yeah. See, look, it says right there. It says an American International Picture. Oh, AIP. That's Corman, his company. You know, the guy that did Roger Corman did all the Vincent Price, Edgar Allan Poe movies. They
Oh,
did
right,
like
right.
Little Shop of Horrors. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
independent stuff, and then they would distribute, you know, and do stuff like that. And it says it's a Cinema 77 film. That sounds
Yeah.
like very low budget. I'm sure it got picked up by. I want to say it got picked up by Universal, but it could be Paramount. I don't know. I don't see
Hmm.
either one on here. Oh wait, let's see. No, no. I don't see who was the final. I think it was Universal though, because if it
Yeah.
was Paramount, it would have been on Paramount Plus for us to watch. I would
Right.
think.
That would have been nice. So James Brolin, George Lutz.
So, what'd you think of James? Yeah, in the part.
Yeah, no, I think it was pretty good. Because he looks like DeFeo, and that was one of the things about Lutz in saying, oh, he looked like when he went to that bar, they're like, oh, you look just like him.
And did you think that they replaced the entire bar scene with the cop scene earlier in the movie? Because the cop says, "Hey, you look just like the guy,"
Yeah,
you know. And I thought, oh, they're not going to do the bar scene, and then they go and do the bar scene, and then it
completely
reinforced.
different. Yeah,
Yeah, and
because
then they
he
have the
goes to the bar by himself.
Yeah.
after going to look at the blueprints and whatnot. But then he meets up with Jeff, and then
In the movie,
after,
yeah.
and then Carolyn comes. And
So yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, they meet in the bar and they do that thing, which is totally different because it's just the bartender telling him about the room, the secret room that he had already found.
yeah,
What did you think about that? Did you think it worked better for the secret room or in the book or the movie?
I don't know. I think it was more um, visually appealing the way they did it in the movie,
Mhm.
because what's shocking? This woman's taking a pickaxe. First of all, why does this dude have a pickaxe? Um, so second of all, and then this woman's like taking a pickaxe to their house. Um, so I think that part kind of made sense in the movie that they changed it like that, because in the book, isn't it just like a panel of
It's
wood
just a panel.
behind a shelf,
He
you know?
shifts it, he finds it, and then the dog goes crazy. In this one, the dog's going crazy to try and get in there.
Yeah,
And then once they get the wall knocked down, the dog runs away because it doesn't want to get in there. So that was kind of
yeah,
missed.
but then
Well,
it
not
goes back.
confusing, but yeah.
Yeah,
At the end, it goes back to and then we can talk about the ending when we get to that part. But
yeah,
I
please.
thought I will tell you this. I thought he did a really good job of manifesting the disgruntled nature
Yeah,
and the impatience of the character in the book.
yep,
He definitely got that down. I thought it was a, I don't know if it was because of the time. It couldn't have been because of the time, because nobody would have blinked if he would have smacked those kids or she smacked the kids or
right,
anything.
right. Yeah,
But they totally,
1970. Yeah,
he smacks her, and I don't remember that in the book. Do
I
you?
don't either. No,
So
no,
he pops her, and then the next scene is her going to try and find the father and talk to him, and then she gets, the runaround again.
without a mark on her face.
Yeah,
She should have had at least some kind of redness, because, and he hit her pretty hard.
yeah, he busted her nose. She had blood coming out of her nose. Now he didn't break it, but he did get a good smack right there.
Yeah,
And then, but then the way he kind of falls to the ground, and he's got almost Indian style sitting, and he starts to feed, and he's got all the wood in his arms. He's holding it, and he's trying to feed it into the fire. And he
yeah,
kind of glances back at her, and she's just kind of, I don't know, she's not even looking at him anymore. She's just in the background. I was like, man, that right there, kind of in a nutshell, it gives us an idea of the character. You know what I mean? He's
yeah,
really starting to lose his sense of identity.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
So,
like the fact that he didn't immediately switch it into, "Oh, I'm sorry, please forgive me." That kind of reaction that you normally see in movies and TV shows, because
yeah,
it adds even more. Because up to that point, their relationship was so um, you know,
loving.
yeah, loving, that you don't even have that idea that he would even raise his hand. There's no threat of violence in this movie from the until that point where he hits her.
Right.
And maybe that's why they took the other stuff out. It makes it a little more shocking when he does hit her, because it doesn't make any sense to the scene. She's just trying to help him out. And he's
Yeah, and I mean, maybe they didn't want to put in, because there was a scene in the book where they both beat the boys.
Yeah, they both, and they're screaming at the kids and the kids are getting really aggressive. They cut
Yep,
all that out. We don't have any of that, and they beat the dog. And
yep,
so we don't get either one of those, which that's a good thing. But it would it does totally change her character if you don't have her yelling at the kids as much as she does in the book,
yeah,
and you don't have her getting angry and violent, then she really comes across as a victim in this whole thing.
yeah, yeah. So Margot
And
Kidder.
yeah.
Uh, I looked quickly at her filmography, and actually Superman was in 1978.
Oh yeah, you're right. It was.
Yeah, and this came out in 79. And now I feel really old because I freaking love the 1978 Superman. That's like
Right. I was
one,
thinking 80 and 82, but I guess it was 78 and maybe
yeah,
81.
yeah. So now I feel like really, really old. Um,
But was Superman the first thing she really did, or was
she
she
was
something
in
else?
a movie called Gaily Gaily, with Beau Bridges in 1969.
Don't you love? movie titles from the 60s and 70s. They don't
Yeah,
make sense half the time. I love going through
yeah.
that and trying to figure out what the heck that movie's supposed to be about.
And then she was in a movie with Gene Wilder, who we
Okay.
know Gene Wilder is the best. In 1970, Quaxer Fortune has a cousin in the Bronx.
There, see, look at that title. That is just amazing.
Yeah. And then she was in 1972, she was in Brian De Palma's thriller Sisters.
Okay, yeah. So there you go. So now you're starting to get, oh, this totally makes sense then, because De Palma, he goes on to do, is he the one that did Exorcist? No,
No.
he did something though. He does one of the big horror movies, I think. It
Yeah,
was
let's see.
um
Brian De Palma, let's see. Scarface, Carrie.
yeah,
Um,
Carrie. He does Carrie.
yeah.
Yeah, no, he's one of those guys. It was William Feinlin, or who does Exorcist? I know it's
Oh
one of the guy that
gosh. I can't
we should
remember.
know this off the top of our head. I mean, this is a big name that did The Exorcist.
Yeah.
But you get that idea where they have these really cool, cutting edge directors that are coming up. William Friedkin. Yeah,
Right.
Friedkin. That's how it says it. So, um, yeah, so I get it. So that's cool. So she had some work with him. So yeah, so
Yeah.
she's established. She's an actress.
Yeah.
She's a big
Yeah.
name. So then this would have been potentially a misstep if it flopped, if it
Yeah.
wasn't, if it was seen. And I don't know if because I've done some reading on books, a lot of people looked at horror going into the 70s as a kid's genre.
Yeah.
It was silly. It was the Vincent Price stuff, and the Vincent Price stuff had lost its edge. Hammer had cycled through all the monsters many times. And so it was the introduction of movies like The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Amityville Horror at the end, and then you got Halloween. But there are
Yeah.
certain things that grabbed it and elevated it into more of the genre that it is today. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason I wanted us to look at both the movies and the books. The books are cool. We can really get a lot out of it, but you can kind of see with the choices of who they cast in these movies and the directors they got that they were taking these seriously.
Yeah. One thing I didn't like about her character in the movie was the way they dressed her.
Yeah,
She
didn't
had
they dressed her too young?
yeah, she had the pigtails when during the unpacking scene when the priest like right before and then she was wearing that like schoolgirl skirt
Yeah.
with the knee socks. Now, I was born 75, so I obviously don't really know much about fashion in the 70s, but I've seen pictures of my mother and she was not wearing those types of clothes. And I think they tried to make her look, like you said, younger than what she was.
So I wonder, was that the clothing that single women would have been wearing at the end of the 70s? But the problem is that this character's not, this is a mom, not only even if she was a single mom, she's a mom,
Yeah.
and she would dress more conservatively, especially if we're to believe that she's Catholic.
Yeah. So, and so the unpacking scene, she was wearing jeans and a top, which is fine, but she had her hair in those pigtails, and like you said, she was a mom, and
Yeah,
back in those days, it was expected of women to change the way they change their appearance as they go through life.
right.
When you're a young girl, you have the long hair with the pigtails and stuff, and as you get to be a young woman, maybe you cut your hair and it's a little bit shorter. And when you're a mom and a wife, you wear like conservative hairstyles.
Especially we're
Um,
talking New York. We're talking Catholic New York,
yeah, not
upstate
even
New
New
York.
York City,
Yeah,
upstate New
upstate New
York.
York. So we're
Yeah,
talking more conservative group of people. And yeah, and see, I don't know because I know pigtails are kind of seeming to come back in fashion now, and it doesn't matter what age. People don't seem to care anymore about the age when they do their hairstyles now.
yeah,
But I couldn't think of a time when pigtails were worn by women in their 20s and 30s throughout my life. I can't think of a time
yeah,
really when that
yeah,
would
and
have been,
then
especially late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
The
and
other
then
thing,
the scene where she was wearing that like negligee thing and she put a flower in her hair.
yeah,
Um I was like, that's kind of weird for her to be looking young and almost virginal,
but
kind of
see,
like it was their wedding night. And I
right,
know she said, "Oh, we just got married," but she got 3 kids, you
right,
know?
and I have no doubt in my mind that they were, intimate early on. But
Yeah,
in the book, we're looking at a family that's been together for a long period of time. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And so
Yeah.
I thought it was not only was that weird, but also weird when they had the impotence scene where he,
Yeah.
sorry, that never
Yeah.
happens to me thing, and she's trying to play out. This is supposed to be, and I know in the movie, even if they were just married or whatever, it just seemed like a weird
Yeah, because
thing to put in there.
they would not talk about that in the 70s.
Yeah, it just seemed weird, and
They
I guess
if
maybe,
that happened between a couple in the 70s, it would be completely ignored,
yeah,
or it would be a situation where the man would get angry and not
yeah,
necessarily violent but angry.
right.
That
He
and they
doesn't
would
want to,
not, yeah, they would not discuss it at all. Nowadays, yeah, that would be, hey, it's okay, we'll try later, or whatever. Maybe
and
you're just
and it,
stressed and whatnot, tired, sick, whatever.
And I
But
could
they,
see her trying to comfort him and say, "Oh, don't worry about it, no big deal." But the way he reacted to it seemed really out of place. But
yeah,
it's not like we're watching a movie filmed today set in the 70s. It was filmed in 79. So
yeah,
so it doesn't, it almost feels like they put it in there to make it seem like the house was killing his ability to have sex, but that doesn't tie into anything.
yeah,
That wasn't an issue with any of the previous characters in the home. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't do anything but I guess add to his frustration, and then we're supposed to, you know what it does? It gives a human excuse for a supernatural occurrence.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? So maybe we're supposed to just take it in. And I can't tell. I can't tell, does the director believe anything happened until the ending. But up
yeah,
until the ending, it almost felt like they were constantly trying to give you a different reason other than the house is possessed, except for when the priest were talking. Every time
right.
the priest came in, when Father Delaney was discussing stuff, 100% this house is haunted. This
Hmm.
is possessed. But
Yeah,
anytime the family were doing stuff,
yeah,
yeah, it was totally like, oh, well, then maybe this is just because you can't, get it up or whatever.
yeah. So we have Father Delaney, Rod Sterling. I think he did a good job.
Yeah,
Um, I actually kind of liked how they handled the sickness, the illness with him.
yeah,
Um, they made it come on quick. As soon as he was in that room, he was ill. He could barely make it to his car. Um, and
yeah.
then
We need
every,
to talk about the nun too after this.
yeah, yeah, the nun. So I really think they handled it well because
Yeah,
I think,
and
yeah, because in the book, it's he goes back to his apartment and then he's like not feeling well and he spends days in bed. That's not entertaining at all.
right,
Um,
but not only that though, he was like, I have the flu.
yeah,
Here, this guy's like, I am so violently ill, I can't speak. Otherwise, I'm just going to pass out or throw up. I'm so ill, I can't even breathe, so he can't even think about speaking.
yeah,
And I thought they did a really good job of that.
yeah,
I also like the fact that they didn't go crazy with the hands.
yeah,
They did a little bit, and he mentions it, but they don't like they do in the other one where he's
yeah.
got
And
like
you can see he was wearing bandages when they were trying to drive to the house when he was with Father Bolin. Um,
What do you think of that? Because in the book, doesn't it just like the wheel locks and they have to pull over?
no, the hood flies up in the
Does
book
it?
too.
Does it? I couldn't
Yeah,
remember because I was like, this is really going. This is really going. Okay,
yeah, but
so
he was
then
by himself. He was leaving
that's
the
right.
house,
That's right.
and he was by himself, and he called his friend to come and pick him up because he needed a ride. Um,
Yeah, and then that's his friend's car, but it still happens to his friend, right? Because if that
oh,
happened,
that's right, because he was talking to him on the phone later on, and he said, "Oh yeah, something weird happened with my car."
right? So
Yeah,
in the movie, though, the car locks up, the hood blows back, and then when he's confronted with the leaders, he's like, "Oh well, could have been anything.
Yeah.
He like won't stand up for Father Delaney at all.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so then you get this weird, what is going on with the church that they're not even Father Delaney, like he says at one point, I'm not brand new to the cloth. I'm an established priest telling you that something was wrong. And they still acted like he was just some loon.
Yeah. And he's like, you
So
need to go see your family. Go take a
I
vacation.
right. I was just like, I don't know. At least in the book, they took it semi-seriously. Although I still hated the fact that their idea of helping was to tell him to stop talking to the family. And they just abandoned the family in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, here they're not even trying to help anybody
Yeah.
except for themselves. And that makes you wonder, is this some sort of, we gotta, you know, paint the church in a negative light, which, I don't know. I don't know how this would have been react. I don't know how people would have reacted in the late 70s to this kind of, thought.
Yeah.
Because today people already have a lot of negative feelings towards the church. They probably don't even blink at it. They're
Yeah.
like, that's what I thought. These two guys is what they're like, whatever. So I would have thought that more people would have been shocked in 79 to see um, leadership of a church completely dismiss stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then at the same time, I just watched Under the Banner of Heaven, and it's about Mormons. And the whole thing is about how the Mormon church, like the higher ups, constantly are trying to forget stuff that happened in the past, and they try and bury all the information. And so as more and more stuff comes out, it gets more and more like you're like, oh my goodness. So maybe
Yeah.
that's what they're all trying to come across that way. So I
Yeah.
thought he was fine. I
Yeah.
don't know. I thought it was weird. What did you think about the way they ended him? You
I
know,
was I wasn't at first I was confused. I'm like, why is this church scene happening? But then I remembered he did like a blessing of the house, but in the church because he couldn't go. And so, and then the whole blindness thing. Um,
yeah. From that point on, he's
yeah.
blind. They just have him sitting at a bench, and he
Yeah.
won't
And then at
talk.
the very end, he's like mute and blind.
And so, are we supposed to believe that the house struck him completely down this way, so he can't do
Yeah.
anything? So that just seems kind of, I don't know, it just seemed out of place. It doesn't really tie into anything. Doesn't end up with a satisfying ending for that character. And it
Yeah.
really highlighted the weirdness of the police detective, the
Yeah.
inspector guy.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah. And that, I don't think we have a picture of the
Nah, that
detective. Yeah.
I only did the three main characters because really the other guys they pop in and out for
Yeah.
just a couple seconds and they were not very helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
So what is it? Gianfardo? I don't know. The police officer.
right.
That was super weird in the movie.
Yeah, even weirder than the book because we made fun of the fact that he would drive by the house, see
Yeah.
stuff going on, and still just keep driving.
Yeah, but he only went by the house because Father Mancuso called him and said, "Hey, can you check on these people for me?"
Right.
Um, but in the movie, um, what made him
He shows up because the door gets blown off.
yeah, so he shows up for the door and the basement door. But what why was he following people around? Like he was following her when she went to try to see
Right.
Dr. Delaney or
Well, I
Father
think at that
Delaney.
point, remember, he confronts them and says, "Well, how did somebody was in your house if they did this to your door?" And the guy's like, I don't know what to tell you. So then they have this weird dynamic where everything that they're trying to tell the police doesn't sound plausible.
Yeah.
So then he's also the guy. Oh, remember, he also confronts um the man George. He says, you look just like the kid.
Yeah.
So I wonder if because he looks just like the kid and weird things are happening at the house, that he thinks something's going to happen. Because
Yeah.
we don't get the idea that him and the priest are talking at all. Because they
Right.
don't do in the movie. He
Yeah.
says at that one point that they're friends. But so we as the viewers are like, just like you said, confused. Why is this guy doing this? And
Yeah.
I think
It's
it has to be because he looks like the killer. I think he
yeah.
thinks because he at the end he says, "Well, I guess I'm just confused," and so he joins the rest of us. But
Right. Because that's what I was exactly thinking when he said that. I'm like, well, join the club because I don't know what's
but
going
I think
on.
it's because he thinks the house has got something wrong with it, and that he thinks that George is going to end up killing his family.
Yeah.
he paid way more attention than anybody else did in the church.
Yeah. Yep.
And the nun, we have to go back to the nun. Is
Yeah,
that
we
not the
see.
most? It's like if you've ever met somebody who's never thrown up, it's this lady. We don't have a picture of her, but when she gets in the house and she's like, I have to leave immediately because she's being possessed or whatever. She gets in that car, and as she's driving off, she pulls to the side, and then I know we're supposed to think she threw up, but the noise she made and the motion, and I was like, what is this? It made no sense. I was like,
Yeah.
this is made for TV kind of stuff right here. This
So
is what we
the
thought.
yeah, that goes back to my whole point about there is more religion in the movie than
Mhm.
there were in the book, because I maybe I'm not, I mean, I only read the book, what, 2 weeks ago?
Right.
Um, and I would like to think that I'm not old enough that my memory is slipping, but I don't remember an aunt nun.
She did. She showed up at the house.
I
She got the tea ready. She came in the house, but she had some interaction with the kids that went weird, and George was being kind of a jerk.
I remember she had an aunt, but I don't remember her being a nun.
You know what? I Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe I'm missing
Yeah,
that part. I just remember her being super religious.
yeah,
Because she came in and said there was something wrong.
yeah. But yeah, you're right. She drops the plant and then she's like, I gotta go. And then that vomiting on the side of
I
the
was like,
road.
oh man, this is terrible. But you know what? I was like, okay, I'll give you a pass. It's 79. I'll give you a pass.
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, she
yeah,
doesn't know what she's doing, but
yeah.
um,
If it were today, they'd have like nice sound effects or whatever.
right.
But I was, yeah, I don't know about that. The nun was too much.
So you've watched the Ryan Reynolds version. I have
Yeah.
not. Do you think it's better or worse than this?
Um, I can't say it's better or worse.
Okay, it's just its own thing.
Yeah,
But was it more about him turning into a monster and being more aggressive and all that stuff?
yeah, yeah.
Because
And
every picture I remember seeing of him, it's like he's
yeah.
the villain of the story, not the house. And so I wondered how they handled it. Because you 100%, no matter how bad George is, and I read a thing saying that he said that for 2 years after this movie came out, he couldn't get a job because he was so awful in the movie. Like, his character was such a bad character, like he was typecast, he said. And then he
Yeah.
finally started getting more work. I didn't go look to see if that was true on the page. I just saw that as a quote from him. But I'm like, I didn't think he was monstrous at any point. Even when he hits her,
Yeah.
you get the feel that it's not him, it's
You saw
the
worse
house.
in uh what is the guy? Oh my God, Clint Eastwood movies. You saw worse
Oh yeah.
abuse it to women. What was that movie he was in? Convoy, I think was the name of the movie. Anyways, you saw worse things going on to women. This guy only hit his wife once.
Right, and not in a way that made me feel like it was the guy. It was more
Yeah,
an extension of the house.
yeah,
Like I just watched The Man with the Golden Gun with Roger Moore's James Bond, and it came out in '74. And he is knocking this girl around, twisting her arm behind her back, threatening to kill her, doing all this crazy stuff. And it's just, and you can say, well, and Sean Connery is notorious for being known as a James Bond that's doesn't mind smacking women up and stuff. You don't get any of that vibe from the character, I didn't think.
yeah,
And I didn't, and he would, and they didn't focus on the children, so we don't really. Only once did he yell at the kids in the movie that I can remember, really, where he really turned around and just started yelling at them. Although, did you like the scene when they're at the door and then the little kid sneaks up behind him and he turns around and he just like, loses his mind because he's scared
yeah,
at the little girl and then he yells at her and she runs away.
yeah.
We discussed that with the book. Was it Jolie or Jolene or whatever the
Jody,
character? Jody.
Jody.
We were curious how they were going to handle it. How did you feel they handled it in the movie?
Okay. I think they did pretty good, but they changed it from a boy to a girl, because in the book it's a he, in the movie it's a she. Um, and they actually did the pig in the window.
Right, and I thought they actually did a decent job for 1979 special
Yeah, I
effects.
was like, oh, there it is. Because at first when I was watching, I thought it was just the eyes that the mom saw. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's lame. But then afterwards, when George, like later on in the movie, when George was outside, and he looks up and you can see this actual pig with red eyes in the,
Yeah, and it wasn't just a pig, man. That thing was huge.
yeah, it
So it
was
was
like
like
it took
a
up the
big
whole room.
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So I
I was,
thought they did a decent job, but I wish they
yeah,
would have done a little more with the spirits. They didn't, no ghosts. You only
yeah,
had the mom. And I think that might be why they didn't go down that path with Kathy, because they don't have her being touched by the ghosts and running into the ghosts and being in the room with ghosts. You know,
yeah,
they rarely even mention that there's anything else in the house. They just say there's something coming out of
yeah,
the basement at that one point.
yeah. I really wish they would have done more. I mean, they added that whole babysitter in.
Yeah, and that was
Um,
semi-interesting, but it really just again made it seem like door got stuck, little kid.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish they would have. I hate to say it, but I wish they would have done more to the babysitter.
Right. Didn't you think it was weird though that like after three times of knocking on the door, she's bleeding? I
Yeah,
thought that was a little odd. I was like, she's not really hitting the. I mean, let's have that at the end when they open the door finally, and then there's blood on the wall. Then you'd be like, oh my god, she's been hitting it the whole time. But they
yeah,
had the blood happen so quickly. I thought, well, that just seems a little too much.
yeah.
Oh, of course, it's 79. What are we balancing? And I'm assuming this was a mainstream movie. I said it was done by independents, but it had to have been picked up by big enough because it made a ton of money.
Oh
And
yeah,
so I'm thinking, and if people may not be familiar with how theaters worked in the 70s, it's not like today when you went and there's 20 movies to choose from or whatever.
you got one or two
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, one or two theater screens in a house, and if you're lucky, they lasted, a run. It wasn't until the 70s that you really got those like Star Wars, Jaws, where they ran the whole summer in a theater. And then you started getting these multiplexes in the 80s where you'd have multiple things. And then we started seeing that growth. But, you know, for Amityville to make money, it had to have been in a ton of theaters all over the country. It couldn't have just been a little bit. So,
Yeah.
and maybe that was some of that was shocking. The handle of the kid's hand, I thought that was decent, when
Yep.
they thing slammed on his hand, there's some blood, just enough to make you think the house was acting up funny. Um,
And then the weird neighbor again that came with the beer and then left.
right. But this time he doesn't come in the house. He doesn't talk to George. In the book, he talks to both of them,
Yeah.
walks around the whole house, and then leaves with his beer. This time it's just scratching on the thing, and then she goes and gets the phone call, turns around, and when she turns back, he's gone. And
Yeah.
and like and he looked like a hobo. He didn't look like a
Yeah.
neighbor. In the
Yeah,
book, it
because
sounded like a normal person came to the door.
yeah, and he explained, oh, I have a boat down at so and so's house.
Right, but he still didn't look like a dirty hobo. In this, he looked like a dirty hobo.
Yeah.
And so it made me wonder, was he supposed to be a spirit? But they don't really, you know, as much as they push the haunted house, they don't want you to think that there's ghosts anywhere. They didn't
Yeah.
do the banister, which I'm actually happy they did, because if we would have saw this physically, if we would have seen the physical damage being done by the ghosts, then halfway through this movie, all you're thinking is these people are morons. Why are they still in the house?
Yeah, and the garage door.
Yeah,
Um,
the fact that they held the front door and the basement door till halfway through, I thought was smart. I thought the flies, they didn't go crazy with it. What did you think about the beginning when they're in the yard playing and the father walks in the house and just decides I'm going to go upstairs and start blessing rooms or whatever? You know what I mean? I thought that was kind of odd. I mean, I guess he was looking for the family. He sees them in the backyard, but instead of going and talking to him, he immediately starts to bless the house. And
yeah,
that's when he
because
gets sick.
yeah, that's what I would have done. Oh, they're out there, so I'll just find my way to the back of the house and
Right. You don't
go
just
out.
start your blessing, I wouldn't think. So, I mean, but then what does he do? He leaves because he's sick. And I get that part. But,
Yeah.
and had they
Eh,
left on their boat yet? Was he still in the house when they got on the boat and drove and whatever away? They didn't
I don't,
sail away. They were
yeah, I
kind of
don't know. I think he was out. He was like just
okay.
leaving.
Because otherwise, why would he not go immediately to the other humans and say, I need help. I'm dying here?
Yeah.
Because it looked like that. And then she's like, oh, he never showed up. And the guy's like, well, no, he showed up. And she's like, no, he never showed up, but we're in a boat driving away. So how would we know?
Yeah,
But
and we're waiting for him, but we're gonna go get on our boat and drive away.
yeah, and so that all of that seemed a little weird, but at the same time, it gave you that little bit of we know the house is haunted, but the family doesn't. And I thought that
Yeah,
was smart by the director. And I really do. If you go and look at uh, his director page, it's all really serious movies like Brubaker and Cool Hand Luke, stuff like that. They're like social commentary pictures he's done. And then Amityville Horror's in the middle of it. And
yeah,
so it's kind of cool to see. I'd love to see how, whoever was the big horror director of the day would have handled it for the first time.
yeah,
I'm curious now to go look up and see who directed the Ryan Reynolds version. Usually they're young nobodies when you get, during that time period, we had a lot of
yeah.
horror
Let's see.
remakes of nobodies.
Yeah,
But
let's see.
we, I almost want to know how would have this looked if a established horror director would have done it versus who did do it, and would it have been a viable film? Would it have been as popular, or would it have been more of a um, you know B movie horror thing that we would have watched on USA on the
Yeah,
weekends?
yeah. So it was. Wow, I didn't realize it came out 2005.
Yeah, long.
Yeah. It was
It was
directed.
before he got really famous.
Yeah. It was directed by Andrew Douglas,
The name's familiar, but I couldn't tell you off the top
and
of my
there's
head
not
which.
even a link on his name to a Wikipedia page.
Hmm,
So
that tells you all you need to know there.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I don't know. I just don't know. I liked some of the stuff they did. I like the fact that they didn't, because if they would have followed the book and done the house that way with the kids,
hmm,
I just don't see how you're in the house after day three.
yeah. No, no.
So I thought they did a good job. I thought Josh or James, I want to keep calling him his kid's name, Josh, but James Brolin I thought was good.
Yeah.
At that time, I'd love to go back. I need to go back and look. Was he a household name in 79 or was he still making a name for himself?
Well,
Because
let's see.
I remember him as a big name, a big deal in the 80s, but I don't know if he was, rebounding off of other things. Um,
Let's see.
what
Where's
did
his?
you think about the brother? Did he not look like he was 12? I was
Yes,
like,
he
how is he
did.
getting married? This
Yes.
kid does not look old enough to be married. And I didn't like the way they handled the money. Then you see the little flicker in the coat,
Yeah.
when it's sitting there, and then they can't find it, and then later they find the bands, but they don't find the cash. I just thought that
Yeah.
was silly.
And they didn't do any levitating because didn't the Jimmy's wife levitate when they stayed
Yeah.
after they came back from
Well,
their
it's Margot's character supposed to levitate too, right?
yeah.
And
Yep.
and did they did the old. She did turn old a little bit,
Yep.
and she did get a sore on the back of her hand, but not like the festering sores that burn to the touch.
Yeah.
So I thought that was because any of that stuff should have got you out of the house. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate his um oh man, what his restraint. I appreciate his restraint
Hmm.
in this film because I thought they did a good job of building up a little bit of the tension and all that. But I thought the ending was a little much.
Yeah. They yeah, James Brolin, his filmography starts in 1963. Take Her, She's Mine, an uncredited role. Um, and then yeah, so pretty consistently from 63. So 65, he was in two movies. 66, he was into The Cape Town Affair in 67. The Boston Strangler in 1968. He was
Okay.
so he was in that movie, which interesting. I might want to go check that out.
I thought he
Um,
did really good. I liked him. I like
yeah,
his presence. I think he has a good presence. I think he's,
yeah,
I do enjoy him. If you ever watched, it's not Modern Family. CBS came out with some ripoff of Modern Family, and he plays the dad in the thing, and he's really good in that. I'll have to go look up the name so we can tell people what it is. Um, It was like he's got like three children, and each one of them has their own life situation going on. And so he's got a daughter, I think, and two sons or three
Yeah.
sons, something like that. And then you have to deal with their families and, so on and so forth. But it has like 4 or 5 seasons, and he's really funny in it. In the
Yeah.
end, it seems like he gravitated more towards comedy. Oh, he's Castle's dad. Spoiler alert. If you watch Castle, he plays his dad. So, I mean, he's done a lot of cool stuff in older years, but I didn't know how well established he was before this film.
Yeah.
Because this feels like a film that, if it succeeded, would have been a launching point for some people's careers. But it looks like all of the people that they cast are already established.
Right. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed they acted. Margot Kidder's character was kind of annoying because they were making her more innocent and, younger
Right.
than she should have been. So I was a little
Do
annoyed at that,
do you
but
think that maybe that was their attempt at changing her personality? That, like, so we said she was the only character who didn't have the personality change like in the book. So maybe instead of going more aggressive, she was becoming more innocent, or in a way maybe more sexual. Maybe she
yeah,
was trying to do that and they were doing it that way. I couldn't tell. I'll be honest with you. If I was looking at it, I would think that she just seemed normal throughout the whole movie.
yeah,
She wasn't aggressive. In the book, she becomes sexually aggressive at
yeah,
one point, but she doesn't really do that at all in the movie. But I don't know if they were just trying to keep her, like you said, just annoyingly herself, or if they were trying to give us some subtle hints that she was something else.
yeah. All right, so let's talk about the ending.
Oh god, the ending might be, I don't know. It's not terrible. And maybe at 79, I would have been like, oh, this is the best ending I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But not 2022. I was like, really? So what
I didn't really know what was happening.
so we had
Um,
the storm. Oh wait. So is the ending right when the lady starts? They find the room, right?
yeah,
They tear the room out and they go to bless the house. Do we get an advancement in the days? It's all
yeah,
blurry.
I can't remember, but at the very ending is when it's she's out, and it seems like she's far, far away from home, looking at the newspapers from the murders, and she notices DeFeo looks like
That's right.
George.
I mean, it
Sh
is a picture of James Brolin. You know what I mean?
yeah,
They made it exactly like him. So,
yeah.
what did you think of that when they found the red room? Do you think everyone saw the reflection or the face show up, or just him? Because
I
his
don't know.
face shows up on the wall, and
Yeah,
it's
I
it's
don't know.
his face.
I think it was just him. They didn't do the whole seeing the figure in the fireplace either.
No, they didn't, and they didn't do they didn't show us the well either. They
Yeah.
just showed us the red wall,
Yeah, and they were
which
like,
I thought was
find the
kind of.
well, find the well. Anyways, so yeah, the storm starts. He's home with the kids. Like, I'm not gonna leave my kids at home with this guy who's like very fond of an axe.
Right. Well, not only that, he just, a couple days ago smacked her, and so he's
Yeah,
being aggressive and stuff. That's right, because he's at the boathouse. She pulls up. She runs into the house. That's where we get to see Jody. Right.
yeah,
We see her in the window because he's coming to the house,
yeah,
and then what is the centralized point that forces him to leave the house? I don't remember. I remember
yeah.
there's a storm. The windows start bursting in.
And he goes and attacks the children. Just remember, the kids are in the bathroom. Kathy's hiding. He's doing
So he's
he's
doing
doing
a
a
shining.
he's doing a
Yeah.
shining with the axe on the door.
What did you think of that?
Um,
Because that's not in the book at any point. He never attacks the children
with an axe. Yeah, no.
at all. I mean,
Yeah,
what's the word?
discipline
Disciplines them,
them.
but he doesn't ever. He's not trying to kill any of them. And this
Right.
is they're in the bath. Why would they be that scared? That didn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me. But yeah,
And
you're
then
right. So yeah, there's hitting it
yeah.
with an axe.
And then Kathy comes and tries to stop him. He goes to get her with the axe, but then he stops, and that's when he's like, has this epiphany. We need to
Now,
get out of this house.
didn't she look like an old woman? That's what she looked like, the old
That's
woman,
when
right?
she looked like the old woman. Yes.
Okay,
Uh,
here's the other question. he walks into the house and he's screaming for Amy. Who is
Yeah,
Amy?
the daughter.
The daughter's name is Amy?
In the movie, the daughter's name is Amy.
Okay, so I had no clue that they had done that. So the whole
Yeah.
time I'm like, who's Amy?
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is Amy one of the people that was killed earlier? And so that's my fault for watching the movie in four parts in different parts of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, so now I'm the idiot because that's definitely, if that's the daughter's name, I should have known that. So
Yeah, but it
okay,
still doesn't make any sense because he's just randomly starting to scream
right.
and try to
Why
find this little girl.
I'm gonna kill the youngest of the children for some reason and go
Yeah.
after it. That didn't make it. Yeah, you're definitely right. Now the only other thing is was he screaming for Amy because he saw Jody
Jordy. Oh, maybe.
in
Maybe.
the
I didn't.
window? Maybe he was screaming to find her to save her, but then that doesn't tie into the axe in the door. So yeah, you're right. So right now we're completely confused by an ending
Yeah.
we watched. I literally watched the ending of this movie like 5 hours ago, and I have no idea what happened. So
Yeah.
this is even more embarrassing than I thought it was
Yeah.
going to be. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah,
then just Kathy turns old. He's like, "Oh, we need to leave the house." They run out to the car starts, which in the
yes,
movie
it
or
does
in the
not.
book it didn't start, so they were trapped in the house. They
For
drive
like
halfway
another
down.
week though.
Yeah,
Remember,
right.
they stayed another week after that
Yeah.
incident. You know, it's
Um
like, yeah.
and then they stop halfway down and he goes to get the dog. And
Right.
I don't
And
know, I think they made Amy a little creepy because she's like, "I want Harry."
but not
Like,
only that, the mom was ready to bail on that dog.
oh
She was
yeah.
like, F the dog. I was like, why did you have the dog in the basement? Why isn't
Why?
it
Yeah,
outside?
I mean, it was storming, so he must have brought him in, but why was the dog in the basement?
But it wasn't the winter storm that said established the dog as an inside dog. The whole time in the book, that dog is outside because you even made a point. Why is this dog outside so much? You know, and
Yeah.
I was like, well, because because we discussed it. We thought because it was a husky-esque dog that it was staying outside just because. But a
Yeah.
black lab definitely would be in the house in the winter. But it
Yeah.
didn't make sense in the summer. So great. They add that part, the dogs in the basement. You're right. But why he drove forever down the street before he stopped to get out to go get the dog. I thought, why would you walk that far?
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Back
Turn
it
the
up.
car. Yeah,
Right.
back it up, turn the car around, whatever. So and then he goes in. Um I I guess that was meant to be the well that he fell into.
I think so. And I think it's because, the stairs, he walks right in and immediately the stairs give and he goes straight into that red blood goo. And that's the other thing. What did you think of that? In the book, it's ooze.
Green.
It's
Green
green ooze.
ooze.
But in the movie, it's all blood.
And more
And
cinematic.
I
More,
think so too. I think so
yeah.
too. So,
Because
but
I
I
was
thought
like,
it,
"Ooh, when are we going to see the green stuff?" You
yeah, I
know?
was kind of curious. And even the stuff that came out of the walls, it was blood, obviously, but the staircase of blood,
Yeah.
I thought looked really cool. And I thought that was a
Yeah.
good touch. I was glad they didn't do it. If he would have fallen into green ooze, I'd probably have been like, this reminds me of I
Toxic
know
Avenger.
or that, or I was thinking, what's that Nickelodeon show that we used to love when we were
Oh, you
kids?
can't do that on television.
That's right. Yeah. When they said the word, whatever the word was of the
Yeah.
day, and they get the ooze dropped on him. But yeah, so they fall directly into the well. So
Yeah.
now he is covered in blood, and
Yeah.
the dog's still
Or was
freaking
it
out.
even blood because it was black? So it was like
Yeah. So maybe it's like
tar.
tar.
I don't know. Poison
Well, it could
spiritual
right. It has to
goo.
be whatever
Yeah.
symbolism they needed for that scene.
Yeah.
But
And then it was almost like the dog was attacking him, but then all of a sudden the dog's pulling him out of the well.
right, and so they did a kind of bad job with that kind of
Yeah.
back and forth. I thought because you couldn't really tell, and then I guess you could say, well, the stuff on his body was so disgusting or so evil that the dog couldn't recognize his owner,
Yeah.
and so maybe that's what you go with. But still, yeah, it was kind of weird. And then, um, and then it obviously isn't tar because 3 steps in the rain, he's completely clean.
Yeah. And he has to bust through the window and throw the
Yeah, that
dog
was kind of cool.
outside.
The door slams shut and the tree
Yeah.
crashes into the house and the windows are blowing out. So that I mean, in the book, all that happens over a period of time,
Yeah.
and we kept thinking, why aren't these people leaving? So it made total sense in the movie to hold on to most of it to the end
Hmm.
and really give us a good blowout.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the ending is, so he gets in the vehicles drives away, and then it just slaps up the paragraph like they do in those old movies.
Yeah, they moved to another state and they never cleaned their stuff or whatever it said.
Right. Never returned to their house.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, he left a motorcycle, he left 2 boats, he
Yeah.
left those aren't haunted. I'll tell you, those aren't haunted, dude. You can go back and get your stuff, it's outside. You want
Yeah.
to leave the other stuff, that's fine. But I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I thought the performances were fine. The movie was
Yeah.
good. And you know what? We said it with the book. This could be a gateway movie
Yeah.
if you're okay with 5 seconds of a boob. If
Yeah.
you're anti-nudity, then for whatever reason, because it's a '70s film, they have to have it in there. It's
Yeah.
mandatory for an adult,
Yeah.
an R-rated movie. It's not even an
Right.
adult movie, but so they had to have that in there in the '70s. But um, yeah, because it has some tension. It
Okay,
has a little psychological stuff
let's
to
go
it.
back to that part again. What was with the one leg warmer and what was she doing like ballet moves?
I couldn't remember in the book if she was supposed to be a dancer or not.
Yeah, I don't know, but
And
she
that made me think I think that might be what made me think that she was channeling a different person, the pigtails, the dance thing.
yeah.
So
But
maybe,
that took
but
me a
you're right. It
it
didn't
was
make
like
any sense. And he's just watching her and she's like, oh, and he's like, oh, I thought you were gonna whatever dance for me or whatever. But
yeah.
I
Yeah, so
I
she's just
think it was
standing
supposed to
there.
be playful and it came across more as just weird. So
Yeah, totally weird. Yeah, I'm like, what's she got with that one leg warmer going on?
yeah, I don't know. The
Yeah.
that the fact that they took the relationship from a established marriage parenthood thing to a we just got married thing, I think it does put the whole dynamic into a different light and does change a lot of the stuff.
Yeah.
um,
And it's funny because I don't know if you remember when we were talking about the book, I had mentioned you really can't find stuff about the kids online. And then I started thinking after we got done with the recording and stuff, I'm like, well, duh, they have a different father. Lutz is not their father, so they must have a different last name.
yeah, that's
But
true.
but Danny has the last name of Lutz. So maybe at some point, because they got divorced.
Oh, did they? Well,
Kathy and George got divorced.
you would
And
think they would have
yeah,
got divorced pretty soon after that house incident,
yeah.
but
So at some point he must have adopted the kids, which is funny because I don't really see that happening like back in the 70s because the biological father, I don't think would have like they don't really explain what happened to the biological father beyond they got divorced. Um,
right.
like so
But you didn't get the idea that he was in the picture at all.
yeah, but still, even back then, I don't. It wouldn't have been as common for the mom to be like, "Oh, I'm just going to have my new husband, adopt the kids." But
Right.
I don't know. Um, but I just found that odd that Danny has Lutz as his last name. Um, but if you Google Missy Lutz, you really can't find anything.
Yeah,
Which
but
Missy is probably not her real name, anyways. It's probably
right.
short for something. But if you Google Christopher Lutz, you can't really find anything. So
But if you wanted to make money and you said the guy has a show, right? Like on
yeah,
Netflix, I'd use the last name of the famous person.
yeah.
If
And he's
I'm if
a
I'm pushing Amityville, I'm using the
Lutz, yeah.
stepfather's
So maybe
name.
that's not even really his last name. Maybe he's just
Yeah,
using it. Yeah, he's like a UPS driver. Um,
that's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, I because I know we discussed it in the book. I'd love to know their what they remember, but in the movie, they're not important characters at all. They have no other than the daughter constantly hanging out with Jody.
Yeah.
But the way that she looked and interacted with Jody and the way that the rocking chair kept rocking and stuff, those
Hmm.
are all human stuff. And then we see a giant pig in in that spirit.
Yeah.
So it makes you kind of wonder
Yep.
about what she was really seeing and all that stuff. And I do wish they would have done but they couldn't have because they didn't do the time right. But that's one of the most iconic moments of the book is the hoof prints in the
In
snow.
the snow. Yep, in the
But we couldn't
ice
do
because
that
it's
because
still,
we didn't have it.
yeah, because it was still there days later because it was in the ice because the
Yeah.
hoof prints froze. So, but I, it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. 1979. It was,
Yeah, yeah.
eh,
I mean, like I was saying before, and then we got off on another tangent on what things we were finding wrong with stuff. But it could be a very good gateway if
yeah,
you wanted to show. So if somebody's interested in horror but doesn't want to be grossed out and they don't want violence, I mean, this really didn't have any violence other
no,
than he pops her one, and that's more psychologically upsetting than it is anything else on this.
yeah,
And then there's some blood, but it's not like it's not even shining level of blood
no,
coming out of a thing. Um, I think you could use it as an entry to a haunted house. I'm trying to think. I've watched The Haunting, and I've seen a couple different versions of, that are basically all the same thing from the Shirley Jackson thing. And trying to think of other, maybe 13th Ghosts. The 13th
13
Ghosts,
Ghosts.
I
Yeah,
guess that's a haunted house. So
yep,
that one's probably my favorite haunted house, but that's very aggressively violent. So
yeah. I
um,
love 13 Ghosts.
and
It's,
maybe some of the old Vincent Price stuff. I love House on Haunted Hill,
hmm
and I like the remake. I think the remake's really good. I'd love to do some. That's something as we just spitball on here. It might be fun to watch a movie from the 50s or 60s and then watch the remake and see what they did
Oh yeah,
better in each one. But um, this was a decent haunted house movie, and like I said, you take out two or three things, it's clean enough to that it could have been an ABC, CBS, NBC movie of the week.
yep. Friday night
It's
movie or
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
And I thought the performances were solid enough. But if we're ranking what we've done so far, favorite book I've read, least favorite movie.
exactly. Yeah, same with me. Definitely not my favorite movie out of the
I
three
don't
we've
think
watched.
the only thing that this movie adds to the genre is a blueprint for the scary movies to make fun of.
Yep,
So the opening sequence of Scary Movie 2 does a really good job of making fun of Amityville. And it really amplifies that. But really, I mean, I can't think of anything in here that was unique enough that I would have been like, oh yeah, it definitely 100% Amityville.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. But yeah, it was a solid movie. Yeah, I
yeah,
like.
no, I mean, like,
Yeah,
6, 7, out of 10, whatever. Not
yeah,
terrible. Not the best thing I've ever seen. I'm not going to put even if it had a 5, it'd be fine.
yeah.
But I would suggest the book. I think the book does a better job of laying everything out and is a little creepier.
I
Uh,
think if they had made the movie like the book, and I mean that in the way the book is told.
mhm.
Remember how I said it was like watching an
Oh yeah,
episode of Unsolved Mysteries?
right. It's like
I
yeah,
know Unsolved
definitely.
Mysteries wasn't around back then, but I think if they had kind of followed the format of the book, I think it would have been even creepier.
Yeah, definitely. Because then you'd have scenes cut to them talking, and then and then it goes to and it rolls into the scene,
Yeah,
and then you would have the way they look after the fact and everything kind of building up towards
right.
this ending. But you don't really get that. You're right. It's just like day one, we bought a house and we're ignoring all this other stuff. And
Yeah,
so, it was well made. Like I said, the director is an established director. I mean, he makes good movies. You're not getting a crappy movie. You may not like the direction they take or some of the things they do. They don't have the cutting edge special effects. It's an independent movie from 1979, but I thought they did well with what they had.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and
I agree.
and I think that's why they cut all the ghost stuff out
Mm,
because the book is heavy with spirits, but you don't have that ability to do in 79 some of the stuff at a cost effective manner to have
yeah,
all those other things, so the dead kid showing up in a room or the old couple constantly hugging and touching her and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah. Maybe that was because the scene where she was in the kitchen on the phone and the like breeze. maybe that was
Yeah.
supposed to represent
And they did
the couple.
they did that one scene where she kept looking behind her because she obviously felt somebody watching her, but she couldn't see anybody. And then
Yeah.
the little girl shows up and scares the crap out of her. So, and you know what? Is this the movie that's the king of the jump scares? You got the cat in the window.
Yeah.
You got little girls showing up all the time, scaring the crap out of everybody. I was like, huh, half of this movie's designed to make you jump. It's the
Yeah.
sleight of hand trick. I'm wondering if maybe that's their contribution to the horror thing is that they gave us all these jump scares. I don't really remember a ton of jump scares in movies before the
No. No.
70s.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you got the pig in the window. You got the door and the windows crashing. Breaking.
Yeah, they do a lot of little things to kind of make you jump out of your skin or try to, which in the theater, maybe it works. On my
Yeah.
tablet, it doesn't really work. So
Yeah.
when I'm doing dishes and watching it on a tablet, for some reason, I don't know why, but nothing was scary at that moment. So, um,
Yeah. Definitely worth a check out if you haven't seen it.
yeah,
Um, it's 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 in
start
1979.
start with this one, and then follow us through Rosemary's, and then Omen and Exorcist, and I think you'll be like, okay, yeah, it's a good movie. But I think
Yeah.
if you watch all these other movies first and then watch Amityville, you're
Yeah.
gonna be like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
And I have to say, unfortunately, I mean, as much as I enjoyed it, I honestly don't think it was worth the $3.99
oh
to rent
God,
it.
yes, I was so annoyed when I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm gonna go to Half Price Books and go buy it because I bet you it's $2.
Yeah.
And then I got distracted with life and I never made it to that. And I ended up having to rent it. And I thought, man, I bet you I could have bought this on DVD for $2 or something stupid.
Yeah. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah. The next one I think is on a channel for us to stream whenever we get to it. I think we're doing
Yeah.
Rosemary's
Rosemary's,
next.
yeah, Rosemary's Baby. It is on Netflix. Um,
And we're gonna watch the Polanski version, right? The
yes,
original. Okay.
yes, yep. Because I actually, like, I think I told you
You had
last week,
started it, right?
I had almost started watching it, and then I was like, no, no, I'm gonna wait because I've seen some of it, but I've not seen the whole movie. And I really want to read the book first.
I want to say
So
this is one that I've seen only parts of the movie. I don't think
yeah,
I've ever actually sat down and watched the whole thing
yeah,
beginning to end, but I have read the book but it's been a while. I'm
yeah,
excited to get back into it and reread it and see how it holds up
yeah.
to Exorcist and Amityville.
I started watching Rosemary's Baby, I think last year sometime, and I got up to the point where she found out she was pregnant, and then I just went to bed and I never went back to it. So
Well, if I remember correctly, it's a slow burn book.
mm,
So I can't imagine. And plus, Polanski, if you want to talk about a director who is full of himself before he really needed to be full of himself, before he's
yeah,
established anything, there you're talking about Polanski. So I'm sure we'll have tons of fun things to say about this when we get done with the book and the movie. Yeah, I'm excited to check them both out because
yeah,
I really would like to compare them with these other ones we have discussed. And then it'll be really cool to finish this off our 70s supernatural with the Omen. I think we will have a nice arc of
yeah,
interesting things. And of course, we start off with our 80s Hellraisers thing. That really kind of put us on a weird road. And now we've kind of swerved over here to these other
yeah.
things. But
I think we were just both excited to discuss Hellraiser and the Hellbound Heart.
yeah,
So, yeah. Yeah, people check out the 1979 version of the Amityville Horror. It's worth a watch. Hopefully you can find it somewhere where you don't have to pay $3.99 for it.
hold out hope, people. You
Yeah.
get it for free.
Um, but yeah, check it out. Okay, now it's time for the Not Stephen King Book of the Week. And this week I have chosen Hellhound by Ken Greenhall. Um, this book is told from the point of view of a sociopathic bull terrier. There is some baby unaliving, but it's not graphic. But there is an infant death scene in there. And then there's animal unaliving. So if those are triggers for you, probably not, good things. But it's really fascinating. The dog's name is Baxter. Um, I got to look because I don't remember when it was originally released.
Well, I can see right here it's got a new introduction with
Yeah,
by Grady Hendrix on this one. So obviously
yeah,
it's
yeah.
been
So
out a
this is
little
the
bit.
yeah, this is the new cover that you can get on Amazon.
Okay.
Um, so this book was actually mentioned. I actually read it before AuthorCon, but this actually is in Grady Hendrix Paperbacks from Hell. He has talks about Ken Greenhall. So Ken Greenhall had three novels: Hellhound, Elizabeth, and I forget the third one. I have it, but it's kind of like a weird title. Um, I can't remember what, but he had three novels. And they were pretty much like disregarded. Hellhound was released in 1977.
Okay. I was
Um,
gonna say if it's paperbacks from hell, then these were 70s or 80s.
yeah, yeah. So this is the original cover. All right.
Okay. Yes,
This
that
is
has a 70s vibe to it.
yeah. So this is the original cover. It actually was so Ken Greenhall had these three novels. They didn't do well, so Zebra was like,
Yeah, I was gonna say
you're done. He actually ended up releasing them under his mother's name, Jessica something, I forget. I just saw it and I forgot. Um, so, and this one was actually released under the name Baxter, um, under his mother's name because that's the name of the dog in the book. So basically, what this book is about, and I absolutely loved it. So Baxter is a bull terrier that goes to live with this elderly lady. Her daughter was like, "Oh, you live by yourself. You need a dog, some company, blah blah blah." So Baxter notices this couple that lives across the street, and he's like, "Oh, they're young," and so he wants to go live with the people across the street. So he kills the old lady, pushes her down the stairs, and the daughter doesn't want the dog. So she asks the old couple, not the old couple, but the couple across the street if they want to keep this dog. And they say, sure. And she's pregnant. The wife is pregnant. So the baby comes, the dog's living with them. The dog ends up killing the baby. Again, it's not a graphic scene, but it's an infant and it dies. And they can't keep the wife doesn't want the dog around, so they end up giving the dog to this family that has a little boy. And the boy turns out to be more evil than the dog. Um, and it's just an interesting book because, like I said, it's told from the point of view of Baxter, the dog. And there's not really many books out there that do that. Like Trenchmouth by Christine Morgan, there's parts of the book is told from the point of view of the monster, but this is pretty much the whole book is told from the point of view of the dog. There's like one or two chapters that are told like from the point of view of the boy that he ends up with. But yeah, it's a really great book. My best friend bought Elizabeth after because we saw Grady Hendrix paperbacks from Hell at AuthorCon. And so she bought us Elizabeth to read, and I haven't read it yet. And then Cold Grave is the third novel. And actually, Nikki Fontana found a vintage paperback of that and mailed it to me.
that's cool.
So I have a vintage of Cold Grave as well. But Hellhound, very underrated. After I finished it, I actually gave it to my best friend to read, which is why I don't have the book on hand. And she actually ended up passing it on to someone else to read. But yeah, it's really an interesting book. Unfortunately, I mean, you may be able to find this cover. I think I'm going to try to find this cover.
Sure.
But if you were to buy it from Amazon, you would get this cover with the introduction by Grady
It's because
Hendrix.
they just don't like covers anymore, I guess, because
Yeah,
this cover right here
it's
versus
boring.
the other cover. The other
Yeah,
cover tells me what I'm getting into.
Yeah,
that one right there, I mean, that could be anything. It could be some sort of
yeah,
existential crisis story that has a
y-
dog in it, you know.
yeah.
This
But
right here
it's
tells me that I'm getting into some fun.
yeah. But the funny thing is, this cover makes it look like this dog is like Cujo, but it's totally not like that. You know, he doesn't like
Sure.
disembowel the old lady. He pushes her down the stairs,
Right.
you know? Um, so the only really violent part is towards the end. Um, and it's the dog versus the boy. So, and then the boy ends up kind of being like the dog and is watching the original couple that had the baby from the old lady's house because his parents, he doesn't like his parents or whatever. Um, so yeah, it's a really fascinating book. It is way underrated. Everybody should read this freaking book. Um,
Cool.
I freaking love it. I love it so much. So
Well, get
yeah,
out there and get Hellhound, no matter what the cover is.
yeah,
So we're more important. Sometimes that's the problem, though. We're always going to judge a book by its cover, and lately, especially when professionals in
yeah,
quotations are in charge of the covers, I think they're killing the genre with that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the Not Stephen King book of the week. We'll have the link to Amazon, and unless you want to do some searching on like Abe Books or First Books or something, and try to find um, a copy of it with an
Yeah,
original
definitely.
cover. And if you do, let me know where you find it because
Right.
I'd really want one. Um, I don't think I had luck when I was searching for it on Thrift Books, and that's why I
Right.
ended up with the Amazon
It feels
version.
like one of those things that it's really going to be
Really rare.
dumb
Yeah.
luck that you find it. You know,
Yeah.
maybe you
Or
find
if
some.
anybody has one of those copies for sale, let me know.
Well, there you go.
So yeah,
Find us on Facebook, or you can email us directly. All that information's on the page. So if you
yep.
find that book, let us know.
Yeah, what's in the box horror at gmail.com is our email. So if you have a copy of that book, let me know. Send us an email. We'll talk.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And our next episode will be on Rosemary's Baby. So stay tuned. Have a good night.
See y'all later.